Welcome to the Men's Collective podcast. In this space, we keep the conversations real, inspiring, and challenging you to become the man you are destined to be. Your family needs you to be better. Your friends need you to be better. We need you to be better. We are your hosts, the Average Joes. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Men's Collective podcast. We are the Average Joes, and I'm joined today by two of my very good mates, Mikey and Jamie, ready for some real talk by some real men. Fellas, welcome.
Hey boys.
Hey, how we doing?
Good to see you again.
We're doing good. It's been a good week. I'm pretty exhausted, to be honest. Feeling it. Mike, I know you're feeling it too. You were saying before.
Always feeling it, mate. We're good.
Had to wake him up to get him on. But look, we also have a very special guest who I will introduce to you all shortly. As we say each week, right here within the Average Joe's movement and on this very podcast is where we challenge ourselves and you, the audience, to grow, to reflect and become better every single day. I'm your host, Wayne Taylor, and today we've got a powerful topic lined up for you. That is the courage to be disliked, placing yourself on purpose in the firing line. Fellas, how many times have you held back on something you believed in simply because you feared the backlash? Every day, as men, we're faced with decisions and choices. Each of those are done to get the desired outcome that you hope benefits the majority. Most of the time, those outcomes are appealing to everyone, but along the way, a lot of the time, we are faced with making decisions that a lot of people don't like. Whether it's an attack on their ego, whether it may bring a result that some simply don't want, and let's be honest, a lot of the time, people just don't like making the tough decisions. At the end of the day, whether it's the family life, business, or social situation, tough decisions need to be made. Someone has to be the bad guy. To make those tough decisions takes courage. Why? Well, for the decision maker, you're going to be disliked for it, and no one likes to be disliked, but it's inevitable. So today we're diving deep into what it means to have the courage to be disliked in order to see the right thing done. By the end of the episode, we hope you, as well as ourselves, understand what it takes to make the hard decisions and do the hard calls, all in the face of being disliked along the way. We've got a panel of four diverse men here today, including a man who knows firsthand what it's like to be in the public eye, to face the critics and to make the hard calls. He is former sports minister for Queensland. He also did 2 terms as an independent member. Then he joined the Liberal Party. Then he is a former One Nations member there with Pauline Hanson. He's a man who's led on the front lines of political and social debate, experienced intense media scrutiny and public criticism. In 2018, he was run through the ringer by all major news outlets for hidden video footage that had surfaced secretly filming him in New York. He is the man himself, Mr. Steve Dickson. Welcome, mate.
Wayne, thank you for having me. And guys, thanks for having me in your room today. I'm looking forward to the chat and hopefully we'll have a frank, open conversation. And if we can help a few people along the journey, that'd be nice.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us, mate. Really, really good. I'll do a very small disclaimer for everybody, but Steve was an invited guest on this panel. He did not approach us nor invite himself on this podcast in order to push an agenda or political view or promote himself. We invited him, he accepted, and we are extremely grateful for it, mate. So, love to have you here. Fellas, I want to start off, courage to be disliked. No one likes to be disliked, but at the end of the day, it happens. Decisions, small decisions, big decisions. No one likes the feeling. But Steve, I will direct the first question to you because of your background. But politics would be literally one of the toughest gigs. It's a job in which you're bound to be disliked simply just for bearing the title way before even giving an opinion or starting any form of campaign. Why on earth would someone put themselves in the firing line and choose that kind of career on purpose?
I could give you probably 10 different reasons, but I suppose it's hereditary for me for a start. My grandfather was a councillor. My dad was a councillor. I became a councillor, then a state MP and a minister in government. It's a bit addictive, to be brutally honest. I was pretty successful in private enterprise. I'm born dyslexic. I grew up on a farm. So, my biggest amount of friends, though, were cows and sheep. And it was a really small place, Mount Morgan. We're another 23 miles inland from there, and we had beef, small crops and dairy. And, mate, I knew my family. And I think growing up on the land's a great thing, but I eventually got involved in politics. I think it's a hereditary thing. I'd been reasonably successful in business at 37, moved to the Sunshine Coast. We'd set up a vineyard and winery on the Sunshine Coast up in the Montville hinterland. And I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur to make things happen. And I looked at politics and I thought, well, these guys aren't making anything happen. They're in it for themselves. And, majority of them, I'm sure there's some really, really good people in politics, but there's one thing I can tell you, I I've probably made 3 or 4 friends since I've been in politics, and I was there for 20 years. And I'm talking about genuine people that, if I was in trouble, I could ring them up and go, hey, I'm broken down. Will you come and help me out? Real friends. But, mate, people are ruthless in politics. It disappoints me today that they're not delivering. They're not doing the things that you get elected to do. And what inspired me to get involved was the absolute opposite to that. I just didn't care. I want to get in there and I want to make things happen. And I want to make government efficient. And I really, really tried hard. I started my career as a councillor, as an independent councillor. I did 2 terms, and then the Liberal Party asked me to join them, and I did. And I took out a sitting minister, a Labor minister here in the seat of Kawana, and I was the member for Kawana for 3 and a bit years, and then my seat got split in half, and half it was Budrum, the other half was Kawana. Ran for that seat, but you've got to be inspired. And I say to anybody out there, if you can afford to do it, if you've got the gumption to get up and do it, you only need to be breathing an Australian citizen over 18. That's your qualifications. I mean, you're not becoming a doctor, you're becoming a leader with people, hopefully their assistant. And I really think if you had to ask me what it takes to be a politician and why you should become one, if you want to make a difference anywhere, local, state or federal politics, just put your name down, have a go and just make a difference. If you're prepared to tell the truth, and my advice would be, believe in God, tell the truth and love your family, and the rest of it falls after that, you'll do a really good job.
You must have fairly thick skin to get into politics, yeah, because the backlash and the criticisms and all that kind of stuff that come along the way, it must be hard.
Well, I'm dyslexic, so it was a bit difficult for me at school, but I'm good at maths and I'm a natural problem solver, and I have got a pretty thick hide, and I learned martial arts years ago, and I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. I mean, if you've got an inner strength in yourself and you know you can look after yourself a little bit, and my take on all that stuff was I wanted to be able to defend my family. I want to be able to look after people if there's something turns to custard, and that's why I got into martial arts. But it's much more than that. It teaches you discipline. Your body becomes strong, you become fit and healthy, and you can look after yourself. But it's all about respect, and I think teaching people respect is a really, really super important thing. And I think we're losing that today. It's a free for all, and it's a simple thing like a running race today. Everybody wins a prize. If you come first, you win a prize. You come last, you win a prize. And I just think
the old participation trophy.
We're losing our way.
Yep, agreed.
If you want to be good at something, train hard, get out of bed early. Do all those things that you should do just to be a rational, thinking human being. But I could get into the philosophy of that real deep, and I think I'll waste your time.
No, like we say here all the time, we like going down rabbit holes, mate. So if you want to go down a rabbit hole somewhere, we go with you. But it's interesting when you look at politics, right? People say, don't ever. My dad used to say to me, mate, don't ever get into discussions about religion or politics. It seems to be always avoided, right? And it's because everyone does have an opinion, everyone does have a belief, everyone does have something, and because we don't always agree, or because it's very hard to see eye to eye exactly with somebody else, it's very easy to form an argument. And I'd followed in my dad's footsteps because he taught me to vote a certain way, and so it was just like a natural family thing that this is the way you vote. But I found, and this is why I have a lot of respect for guys like yourself that put yourself in the front line, because, for example, like the way that I vote, I'm a Liberal voter. Like majority of the time, Liberal's my go-to. But then you look at, say, for example, for the Labor Party, I instantly dislike whoever steps up, and I don't even know the person, which is interesting because like it just seems to be that way. Like, here's the new Labor member, and I'm like, what a wanker, what a this. I don't even know the guy, but I just instantly judge the person simply because they're in that slot of politics, and you don't even know them, but you just dislike them straight away.
I'll tell you the thing I hate. They seem to be more likely to argue against the other party than actually having a rational conversation and trying to find something that's going to work out in the future. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, you say this, and then, no, it can't be that, Or even now with that state politics that's going on now, they're talking about, like, this guy voted against abortion and all the rest of it. But, like, they've openly said so many times, we're not going to change anything to do with abortion. Now, I don't know whether you should trust a politician and what they say, but, hopefully it'd be nice for them to actually
Are you suggesting they lie?
Is it time for a joke?
Yeah, it is.
Let's
Sure.
do it. Time for a joke. You're gonna love this. I'm going to describe politics really quickly and really simply. I actually did it at a forum a couple of nights back. Politician dies, goes to heaven. Peter's waiting for him at the pearly gates, and he arrives there, and Peter says to him, "We have special rules for people like you. You've got to do 24 hours in heaven, then 24 hours in hell, and you can decide where you want to go." So he goes to heaven, and the harp's playing and music, and all the animals are friendly, and the water's flowing, and it's beautiful. Peace, tranquility. You couldn't ask to be in a better place. Just lovely. 24 hours later, boom, down to hell. Devil's waiting there in a tux with a martini, and you go have a drink, and behind him there's 5-star hotel and golf courses and food, you name it. It's all there, everything you've ever dreamt about. And he just has a wonderful, wonderful time. And 24 hours later, pop, he's back up before the pearly gates again. And Peter says, "Well, what have you decided?" He said, "Peter, I'm awfully sorry, but I'm going to hell." Boop, down he goes, and there's the devil waiting in the tux with a martini, and behind him there's lava and sulphur, and it's just terrible, and people are screaming, and it's just the worst place. He goes, "I was down here yesterday, and it was great, and I had the best time ever." He said, "Oh, yesterday we were in election mode. Today you voted."
There's a bit of truth in that, isn't there?
The message is really clear. Don't believe a word they say, because you're going to face the truth the next day. And I can tell you now, on that particular topic you're talking about, I've got a very strong opinion about it. I watched a video the other day about abortions, and mate, this is a tough topic. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about it. Happy to stop right now if you don't. But
No, we briefly touched on this.
We've gone on
a month or so back.
very heated.
I can tell you now that this video, so I cried and my wife cried when I saw it. It had a doctor, and she was showing what they do for abortions, and these babies are alive. 38 weeks, they're going in with a tool and they're ripping arms off, they're ripping legs off, and how it finishes
38
is
weeks.
they crush the skull and drag the baby out. This is a living being. If that was a turtle, or if it was an eagle in an egg, you'd be fined and put in jail if you did it. And mate, I'm really sorry, but I just think people need to think about it. If women have been raped, if things need to be done for their health, absolutely. A woman's body's a body. But when human life is involved and they're that late of a term, and I got called a liar the other night when I said this at a public meeting. I said, I just won't cop 38-week or babies taken for abortions, put into witches' cones, alive, left to die.
Yep.
That's what happens. That was at an inquiry by the state government, in front of everybody. Midwife said that. She saw it. And that, to me, we've got to be better than that.
Yeah.
We really, really got to be better than that. I mean, if human life is not important, I mean, think about it. What would God think? What would Jesus think? Are we getting better? Mate, it just terrifies me to think of what we will do. That's what the bloody Germans did to the Jews, cooking them and all that sort of stuff. And we forget all that stuff too. Silly stuff happening in our country today that just terrifies me. But the abortion thing, I think it's got to be hit head on. People have got to talk about it. We've got to have a frank, open conversation. And then I think we've really got to look at ourselves. There's lots of people out there want to adopt. A lot of people want to have kids and they can't have a child. So why not just give the child to somebody where it can grow up? Might be the best lifestyle, but at least they're alive and they got hope.
Yeah. And unfortunately, some of those would be the best parents. Like, that's all they've ever wanted, sort of thing. And unfortunately, they just can't have one.
And there's circumstances where I understand, where people want to have an abortion, but let's give them another option. It's like sliding doors. There are many options in life. You can choose to go for drugs. You can choose to go to work hard and be successful. You can choose just to be a layabout bum. You can choose to do whatever you like. I mean, lots of options, but maybe we need a few more options.
Just got 3 votes there, mate.
No, I'm just telling you the truth. That's a tough topic you'll ever talk about. But getting down to the point that you spoke about, that question, I know the people in Parliament. I work with most of them. David Christopher used to sit next to me as a minister in government. I was the Minister for National Parks, Recreation, Sport and Racing, and I used to do police and emergency services for 6 weeks a year when my mate Jack Dempsey went on holiday. I mean, I get the job, I understand it, but they're not telling the truth. At the end of the day, I can tell you there's a lot of Christians within the LNP, mate, and they do not believe in the policy that they voted for.
Which begs the question, why do they do it? Why do they Why do they know they're doing the wrong thing and do
Oh,
it?
you're drilling down now.
To be like.
I'm happy to get. I got nothing to hide.
Are they worried about losing the votes that they're going to lose?
There you go. There you go. Well, there's two things. They're worried about losing the votes, but they're also worried about losing pre-selection with their own party next time round, and they lose a job that's worth $200,000 a year that they've become pretty comfortable with, and they're happy to kind of turn up. That's the problem with politicians generally today. I mean, you go into a party room, they'll have a bit of a vote, but it's all doctored. Everybody knows where it's going. I used to be pretty good at this stuff, but you know, you're either representing the people or you're representing the party, and there can be big gaps between those two factions. And if you're not putting the people first every time, you shouldn't be there. That's my opinion.
Well, that's how it's supposed to work, isn't it?
Yep, it used to be like that, but sadly no longer.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's how we think it works. Although deep down we know, politicians, they're liars and all that kind of stuff, and that's what you think. But deep down you hope that is the case. You hope that they actually are putting the decisions are putting the people first, but you don't see it.
Look at the world. I mean, I think people really need to wake up and get this bird's eye view of the planet. I mean, are we better off than we were 10 years ago? Are we better off than we were 20 years ago? Are we better off than we were 30 years ago? I honestly believe society started turning in the 1980s. I think it's when they took away the rights of parents to be able to chastise children, when they took away the opportunity for teachers at school to be able to deal with kids that were being stupid at school. I mean, nobody wants to be a teacher anymore, because they get spat on, they get abused, they get beaten up. I mean, is that why you go to work? An educator goes to work to educate people. They don't go to work to be chastised, spat on and beaten up. And the police, same deal. I mean, the police, it used to be called the police force, now it's called the police service here in Queensland. I mean, I wouldn't be a copper for all the money in the world. One of my best friends is a copper, and he's getting to that age where he'll be retiring soon, but everything is changing, and our society is not getting better. We've got so much red tape, and you said you're a plumber on the side. I mean, the rules and regulations and the cost you've got to go through to do a job of any kind these days, it's insane.
Don't get me started,
Steve.
Steve.
On your property without getting a permit to do it. One of these days, you'll probably have to get a bloody permit to have a fart. Sorry, I'm
That's if the Greens
on
get
saying
yeah.
that, on saying that, can I just get a permission to raise the hands at it?
No, don't.
Sorry.
No. It's interesting to say that because Queensland has been, because at one stage when we had the business, we grew the business, we were in 4 states, and Queensland was by far the hardest, and still to this day the hardest. The red tape and the rigmarole and the rules, it's ridiculous. It takes fun. Like we had last week, our podcast that we released was called Work-Life Balance, and we did an interview with Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, right? And
wow.
one of the he was really cool.
Big company?
Yeah, you probably heard of him.
Thanks, mate.
But I was listening to it again this week, and one of the things he said about the success of business and how to find the right balance is to keep work fun. And you go, when you stand back and you look at it, like here in Queensland, it's not fun anymore. The fun's gone from it because there's so much. But I guess, in line with what we're saying today with our topic, people in jobs that are important and jobs that we're relying on to do the right thing are making decisions to just be liked, but it's working the opposite. Like it's like they're doing what they think to be the best thing, but it's not. Like it's not working.
As I said, I joined the LNP. I should say the Liberal Party in 2006. I ran and became a minister in government. The first term I did, I was a whip, the deputy whip actually, and that job, you basically keep everybody in the house. You know what all the bills are about. I wanted to learn the basics. I could have been a shadow minister straight away if I wanted to be, but I wanted to learn all the shit jobs. I wanted to understand how this place works. It's a scary building. It took me a year to find my way around the whole building, to be brutally honest, to get to know where people were and how things operated. But you move forward, you learn, and I think it was 2011. I come up with this really good plan in my own head because, mate, I'm the dyslexic guy and I have these strategies and I gameplay stuff a fair bit. And I thought, well, I'm going to go and see Campbell Newman and I'll have a chat to him and see if I can get all of his councillors in Brisbane to jump across and run for the Liberal National Party. Or actually, it was prior to that. I put my job on the line so that the LNP came together. We used to be the Liberal Party and the National Party, and we're never going to win. as a coalition, but we formed one party, which was the LNP. And if that didn't happen, I would have got kicked out of politics at that time because I put my career on the line for it. Secondly, I went to meet Campbell halfway between Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast, and nobody knew about this particular meeting. And we got together, we had a bit of a chat, and I put my idea forward about councillors. I want to get a few of his councillors to run for us in the state because we could never win seats in Brisbane. Labor would win them all the time. If we could pick up the Brisbane seats, boom, we'd be in government. He spun around to me, and we're still very good friends today. Cam said to me, he goes, Dicko, what would you say if I ran for Premier outside of politics? I'll stand down as the mayor, and if you guys elect me as the person who will be the leader of the party outside of politics, what do you think of that? And I said, mate, I started crying, having a bit of a tear in my face because, mate, he's the most popular bloke in Queensland at the time. He's the bloke that cleaned up after all the floods, Can-Do Campbell, really well known. And I thought, well, mate, it's a better idea than mine. I love it. So hence that move forward, then Campbell basically started coming into Parliament. We had to keep it a secret for about, I think, 2 months because if he retired within 12 months of the council election, if he had to retire, they would have had a brand new election. Alternatively, if he retired within that 12 months, they can appoint a person from within their own party to be the Lord Mayor of Brisbane. And they did, Graham Quirk. So Campbell did that. I think the party raked money together to pay him a wage while he was outside of the public arena, as in politics. But we brought him in. He came to all the meetings. We set up a whole new shadow cabinet, and things just flew. We had the biggest win ever in political history in Australia, and mate, we were a one-term government because people got power crazy. They went over the top, and many of these new people, they just undermined Campbell from the background. And to this day, he was the best premier we ever had. It's a shame he's still not there because you wouldn't have all the red tape you got today. Mate, he was a bloke of his word and he just did stuff, but we shouldn't have taken on the judiciary. We shouldn't have bloody put criminals in pink overalls. And there's some people in politics, and I won't name them at the moment because they could be the deputy premier very shortly and in other positions, that just kind of went down this path, and it wasn't a good look. People learned to hate us very, very quickly because we were fighting everybody. And did we do a pretty good job? I think we did. We reformed a lot of things, and, the bikie stuff, it slowed down, but I think we went a little bit too far. I mean, they picked on too many bikies. At the end of the day, it was everybody. It was like a shotgun effect, and everybody got targeted. But, there were some severe issues going on as far as criminal bikie organisations were concerned too, and I still think that's probably going on today. Long drawn out questions.
No, not at all. Well, I guess when it comes to talking about like all these people you mentioned, I guess playing a bit of devil's advocate in regards to not so much working up the courage to be disliked, but as a politician, in order to try and gain favour and be liked. So instead of avoiding to not being disliked, but aiming to be liked, what kind of accountability is there? Or should I say, what kind of temptation is there to a politician to just say everything that people like, knowing that there's really no accountability to hold true to it?
Mate, there's so many men there that do exactly that, but there are some rare gems in there that just are really, really liked. I'll use Robbie Catter as an example. He's a member for Tigam. It used to be called Mount Isa, and Rob's got one of the biggest electorates in Queensland, and he's just the nicest bloke you'll ever run across. And Robbie and I became friends years ago when I was a sports minister, and I used to flick a lot of grants his way because I like the guy, and I come from the country, so, you got to look after country people, that's what you do. But there's not many like Rob about. I really like to say there's lots of them in politics, but there's not. I mean, you can see what they're doing. I mean, Australia, our state, it's in a financial mess. They're just printing money. Like, they're promising billions for this and hundreds of millions for that. And I mean, it's all borrowed money. I mean, if you did that in your own business, mate, the receivers would be out the front getting ready to drive down the driveway saying, sorry, mate, we want the blood, we want the stone, we want the wall, we want everything because you're broke. Well, that's our
true.
country.
I get it.
Oh, mate, how stupid is it to give everyone $1,000 for their energy bills, where that could be going into infrastructure to look after our kids for the future?
Yeah, because
you know what I mean?
Because that $1,000 to the just the truth of the matter, that $1,000 to that type of demographic of person
Bought that vote, mate.
You've just
gonna
bought the
vote
vote.
Labor. Yeah,
You've
exactly.
literally just bought the vote. It's
Yeah.
exactly what you've done. Because, it's just the truth of the matter. But when you're unemployed or when you're that kind of social demographic, that $1,000 isn't seen for what it really is. Whereas we see the $1,000 and we go, we pay for this somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
This money hasn't just been created; it comes from somewhere. But
Or
they
not
don't see it.
us, our kids.
Well,
know?
if it's not us, it's our kids.
Yeah.
100%. But they don't see it.
I tell you that topic, it actually irks me quite a bit, that one, because I'm so much of the opinion. I've split thoughts on it, because there are some people out there really, really doing it tough. Older people who can't afford to pay the electricity bill, they can't keep warm in the winter, they can't keep they can't keep cold in the summer. They need some assistance, because our governments, not knowingly, have driven up the cost of electricity. I mean, they created the problem. They're saying they're solving the problem by giving you your own money back. I mean, it's a Ponzi scheme of the biggest of any kind you've ever seen. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we should have the cheapest energy in the world. I mean, we export coal, that black stuff, to every country in the world.
Yep.
But don't you bloody use it here.
No.
You can't use that stuff here. You're a heathen if you do. You're going to kill everybody. We're going to save the planet by not using coal here and exporting it all over the world so they can use it.
Yeah.
I'm being a cheeky bugger, but I'm just sorry. The hypocrisy
It's stupidity.
is overwhelming, but there is a middle ground, and this is where, if you're a politician, you've got to put your hat on and understand people are really doing it tough. They need help. People who probably earn over 120 grand a year, they probably don't need help. So they shouldn't qualify for $1,000 in their hand. I mean, help the people who need it, and the people who don't need it, I'm sorry. We're all grown-ups. We pay our way.
Yeah.
Looking at that electrical, the power crisis in itself, it's interesting because the government can hide behind and point the finger and blame everyone or everything else as to why it's gotten so bad. But then to introduce the $1,000 thing makes them, I guess, in line with the topic, it makes them liked.
Yeah.
To get it to this point of being so bad, it's easy to blame. Finger point, past governments, this. But knowingly, they got us here. But then to bring about the whole $1,000 thing, it's in order, it's decision making to be liked.
Mate, you guys are starting to drill into the stuff that matters. I mean, at the end of the day, Australia, greatest country in the world. We've only been here since 1770, so we're pretty new kids.
Yeah.
We're pretty new kids on the block. I mean, you got to look at the raw asset, what we got, what we could do with it, and how we could do it better. And I just think energy is. There's only a couple of things you've got to fix in this country to turn it. We should have the cheapest energy in the world, and we should have the cheapest water in the world, and we don't. For both of those things, we end up near the dearest. So
Makes no
we
sense.
first need to understand how and why that's happened, and who's responsible, who's getting a benefit from it, and who's getting shot in the neck. We're all getting shot in the neck. Multinational companies are the ones that the governments have sold these assets to. I mean, I'm not a communist by any mind, but I do like governments owning water and energy, because that's their bloody job. They did own it. They've given it away, and now it's a commercial company that owns it. So obviously they want to make a profit, and they want those profits to get better and bigger. And we're the suckers at the end of the day who used to own the asset, but our representatives sold us out.
Is it also a part where it's Australia not wanting to be disliked on the world level, where they're like, well, let's make it look like we're trying to be green. Let's make it look like, you know what I mean? Like toe the line of all the other
That's a good
big
thought.
countries, where they're like, oh, no, we're going to try to meet these targets that everyone's asking us to hit. That's why we're not going to use coal and stuff like that. But yet we're doing ourselves a disservice by not actually using the gifts that we're lucky enough to be born here to have. You know what I mean? So
I mean, you look at the last 10 to 20 years. You've seen it unfold, like if you aren't out there bloody cuddling trees and, trying to show that you're as green as Greta, bloody whatever her name is, that young girl overseas. She drives me nuts. I don't even want to remember her name. But
Mike loves her.
I'm glad he does. I'm glad he does. I mean,
is that the association with red hair? Or
I think it
mate?
gets back to the first point you were making. You've got to have the conversation. If we don't like each other, that's okay. We don't have to like each other, but have an open, frank conversation and be honest about that conversation. I don't mind accepting that I'm wrong. I've been wrong a few times in my life, and I'll probably be wrong a few more times in my life, but throw it out on the table. Let's hear all the really good ideas and let's use the ones that are going to be effective, efficient, and that work, and we move forward. I mean, that's a society I want to be a part of, but that's not the society we have at the moment. It's as you made it very clear, it's populism. It's all about being popular and feeling good, but we might feel good for the short-term sugar hit, but we're not feeling good for the longevity of our country, and we're going backwards and backwards. You might have noticed, I don't know if you follow this stuff, but I follow it very, very closely. Gold's just hit over $4,000 an ounce. The dollar is, I think, about 66 cents. Things are kind of all over the shop. People only go to gold when there's a crisis coming. You know, they did it prior to the Second World War, and sorry to say, people, we're looking pretty ordinary at the moment on a global level. You know, you've got all this stuff happening in the Middle East. You've got the Ukraine stuff going on, and stupid governments everywhere. I mean, there's a couple of good governments starting to emerge, but there are all these lefty Trudeau type governments that want to destroy the farming industry, destroy the electricity industry, charge everybody for things that we don't and shouldn't be paying for. I mean, I grew up as a kid where we had a thunderbox in the backyard, and a bloke used to come up once a week, mate, and he had a leather patch on his shoulder. He'd grab that shit can out and throw it on his shoulder and run out and chuck it in the back of a truck, and he'd replace it with another big tin, mate. That was called sewage in the day. And when I'm on the farm, our toilet, the old man would go out and he'd dig another bloody big hole in the ground, mate, and him and the brothers would lift the toilet up and move it across, and this is a new shit house. You know, real flash stuff. But you didn't have to get a permit. You know, somehow we survived. I don't know how we made it to the age we got to, but the world has changed so dramatically now where you need a permit to do just about anything, and that it all costs.
Well, it's not only a permanent, it's actually standing up for what you believe in as well. Like, you know, if you talk about that you want to be a masculine man and you want to protect your family and you want to provide for them and you know, you want to be respected and you don't want people talking, you know, if someone says something behind your back, you want them to have the balls to actually say it to your face.
Yep.
You know, if these are things that you stand for, then all of a sudden you could be labelled as toxic. You know what I mean? Like,
Nice to meet you.
Is that a bad thing though? Like, if some of these people dislike you because of what you say and what you think and what you believe, is that not a badge of honour?
Who cares?
Like, when
right.
you look at the people that disagree with you and you go, yeah, but look at you, mate. Like, if you think I'm wrong, I must be right.
Well, Steve, you came out with an absolute doozy this week. Yesterday I saw an article on you about the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm sure...
That's not the dirty. I thought my other policy, which we'll talk about after this question.
Feel free to bring it up. Well, okay, let's bring it up after this Olympic ones. But you come up with a statement on what you believe needs to happen with the Brisbane Olympics coming up. Tell us what it is and why you think, because I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people dislike you.
Because I just don't want this question to go the wrong way. But I carried the Olympic flag. My dad carried the Olympic flag. I was a sports minister in Queensland. I am a sports nut. I am still frustrated that the Storms went down because I had them winning by 20 points. I guaranteed they were going to win. I think it's a little bit,
they were going to win.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit like the LNP winning the election. All the pollsters are saying they're definitely going to win and it's going to be the biggest landslide ever. Well, I use that analogy. But getting back to the Olympics, we're being told it's going to cost less than $10 billion. Now, let's also put that into context. Over the last 20 years, there's been 5 Olympic Games. One of them cost $50 billion. That was China. Then you had another one at $34 billion. And then you had another one at $27 billion. But our
And they
genius
didn't pay
is
for
here.
labour.
Our genius,
That's exactly where my mind went. Well, they got cheap labour, you know?
our genius is here in Australia. So I think it's about $7.8 billion. And that's just not real. It's not real. It's going to be north of $20 billion. Way north of $20 billion. And I think I'm undercooking it. I saw some documents the other day, could be as high as 50, 60 billion. But, you know, we're talking 2032. You're in the building industry. Has anything gone up in the last 4 years?
By at least double. At least double.
The point I'm making is we're being lied to about that single fact. So, you know, like, it's smoke and mirrors. And there's a few other things that you need to put into context too. None of us will probably go to the Olympics because at that particular time, everybody's going to come from overseas. You've got to be able to afford to buy a ticket. They're going to be ridiculously expensive. My take is really, really clear. I think we should cancel the Brisbane Olympic Games. They should be held in Athens every year. You know, it's the home of the Olympics. Every country in the world should contribute a few bucks towards it. Send your athletes there, and you know, it's all fun and games anyway. But the truth of the matter is I've pulled a number out of the air and I've called it $20 billion. What would you do with $20 billion here in Queensland today if you could spend it? So there you go, there's 3 years in the room. Give me your answer. What would you spend it on? Because I know what the general public wanted to spend, and I'll tell you after you give me your answer.
Go, Jamie. What do you want to spend on your start?
Oh, $20 billion.
Billion.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll come back to you.
I'm a big component of nuclear. I think that we should go nuclear. So,
Well, that's 6. Keep going. You
Yeah.
got more. You got 14 billion to spend.
well, bugger it. We'll buy 3 of them. We'll do 3 of them. I don't know about how much power it generates, but I would actually think that would cover most of the eastern seaboard.
Oh, mate, you'd easily do it with 3 nuclear power stations. They get about, I think, 15,000 megawatts or 1,500 megawatts. It's serious power.
Yeah.
Where would you start? Everything's broken. Like your NDIS is broken. The medical industry's broken.
You've got to stick to Queensland. 20 billion.
Oh, mate. That's a good question.
Have the courage to be disliked, though, with your answer, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. 12 toilets for all the different, yeah.
Come on, you got to pull it in there. It's up to you.
47 different gendered toilets. I think
Yeah,
you've
that's
done-
right.
You've had time to think about it.
For the plumber.
I would look. This is going to suck an easy answer, but I think infrastructure in Queensland is terrible. I think we're way behind in infrastructure. I hate the Bruce Highway. If you're,
Boom,
mate,
you got it.
I'm telling you, you try and drive back anytime after 2 o'clock on that Bruce, you may as well take a packed lunch for the next day and a sleeping bag because a 1 hour trip takes you nearly 3 hours, sometimes longer from
$8
Brisbane.
to $10 billion to fix the Bruce Highway. That's what the media are telling us. So that's
Really?
I put the question out to the public. So I'm just going to save you all a bit of breath on this one. Homelessness and the Bruce Highway, they are the 2 key items. That's what people want money spent on. They want it spent on it right now. And homelessness, it's a big topic. And I've actually got a solution to that one too, which I put out yesterday. It's called family transfer blocks. And it used to be a policy with the old Maroochy Shire Council when I first got elected, and they abolished it. The Labor government abolished it in 2002. And what it allows people to do, if you've got a rural or rural residential property anywhere in Queensland, you can knock off a 1 acre block. And it's got to be given to a family member. They have to keep it in their hands for 5 years. And you've got to supply your own water, sewage and electricity, unless it's there, unless you can hook up to it. But the beauty of our lovely green plans that they have these days, you can have solar and a battery anywhere you like, backup generator, sewage treatment plant and water tanks. We've all known about water tanks. We've had them forever. I grew up on a farm with them when you didn't have an option. There wasn't any reticulated water in those days, but this would open up 60,000 blocks overnight with a strike of a biro. And then you've got to look at the ripple effect from that. So you've got 60,000 people that are probably renting properties, living in caravans or wherever they are. That's going to free up 60,000 places or 60,000 families. So, boom, they move on to the family transfer blocks. You open up all these units. You open up all these other pieces of accommodation. That's only for Queensland. You imagine if it happened right across Australia.
Yeah, wow.
So it's free, been done before, and I got the Labor Party and the Liberal Party on Wednesday night, the 2 candidates that are running against me. And this isn't a political message because I can tell you, I don't care if we get elected or not. Prefer not to. If we pull this on, I'm dead serious. I mean, I just sat there the other night and I'm thinking, really, I can fix these problems, but do I want to get involved anymore? I mean, it's a thankless job. But the point of the exercise was the Labor candidate, who was the sitting MP for Nicklin, Rob Skelton, and Marty Hunt, who's the Liberal MP, and Marty's a nice bloke. They both come out and said, great idea, we both support it. And I'm just a shitty independent, mate, who doesn't know too much, but it's a simple solution and it costs nothing.
I actually saw Rob Skelton's response to it. He was,
Mate,
he was like, it's actually quite a good idea. Like, I don't think I've ever heard a politician.
It's pretty rare that they didn't check with the party first to say, am I allowed to say this?
Guys, that's a great idea.
I actually played on that. I did a radio interview with Gary Hargrave yesterday, so we've actually gone, or he's gone to the Premier and the opposition leader, and we're still waiting to find out what the answer is. Because, to be brutally honest, if I get this up, I've done my mission. And the elections hasn't happened yet. We got that out day before yesterday. Did the interview with Gary yesterday. That story came out on Channel 7 as well last night. Pardon me. I just think that's what I'd advise anybody to get out there, make a bloody difference, get a mission, get something to be passionate about, and make a difference, because you're only going to live to be 70 or 80 years old, and this is your time on this planet, and then you're going to go somewhere else, and that'll be a whole lot of fun, but that's a different conversation.
I'll tell you what, no, housing is a big issue. So you know what I mean?
Massive.
Like it is.
Well, the problem's solved.
Yeah.
It's there right now. I won't say it's the silver bullet for everything, but I tell you what, it's a whole lot better than what they're doing at the moment, because I haven't seen a solution.
Yeah.
I mean, I would cut immigration tomorrow. I mean, my daughter-in-law is Korean, and I've been called a racist in my life quite a bit, of which I'm not. I just work on carrying capacity. You know, Australia has so much carrying capacity. The government has brought in, I think it was 1.8 million people in 2022-23. I mean, that's insane.
Well, also though, we don't have the birth rates to maintain. You know what I mean? So if we put that money towards actually supporting parents and actually making it easier for people to raise kids, and then also put money into education, so those kids are actually educated properly, then that is also another a good avenue to actually.
You had money left out of your 20 billion too, so you could do that.
Yeah. Well,
I was just going to say too, I would tap into that 20 billion again with my little bit left over, because being in the construction industry, we do a lot of new homes. That's all we do. So I don't do a lot of maintenance. I don't do anything else, but the construction of new homes is predominantly what we do. The biggest thing that we see is the slow pace of land releases coming out, right? I would put, let's just say $1 billion towards, because the reason building approvals and land releases take so long to come out of council is the lack of staff. I'd put $1 billion in bumping up the
Don't
staff.
give them more stuff.
No,
man.
but here's the thing, right? No, because
He's going to get a disagreement here.
well,
Have you
mate,
been into those buildings?
all I'm going to say is this is their excuse, that they're saying that, well, we're so understaffed, we can't punch it out fast enough. So we have the ability on ground where we're going, bring us out more blocks of land, we can build the houses, because the shortage and the crisis is there. But nothing happens. They're just the slow trickle of land coming out, we're going, give it to us, we can do the work. Doesn't come.
It's not staff. It's the will. Everything is about the will to change, the will to do things more expediently, the will to do things more efficiently. I mean, council, I started my career in council, mate. Council has become an over-bureaucratic animal, and state government is no different. I mean, when you look at how many people are employed by local government, state government and federal government in this country, you would be shocked. And the average wage is 100 grand upward. You know, it's big, big money. I mean, I think we are just too top-heavy in bureaucracy, and I think we need to look to do things differently, and we need to cut the red tape. I mean, I don't think it's about assessment. I think it's about over-regulation. There's just too much regulation. I mean, it is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to say it.
there's enough investors out there to go, look, can we split this? Like in Queensland, for you to subdivide a property, it's over $100,000.
Probably.
You know what I mean? And that's like, so that's even before you make a profit out of that. So like in other states, it's 30,000, you know? So
do you not think, and I'm sorry, you know, let's throw a bit of conspiracy into the conversation. Why is all this happening?
if I was going to say, I'd say it's probably because people who want the environment to stay the way it is and not to lose their, you know, Noosa is hilarious to me because people have moved there, right? And I might get some hate for this, but people have moved there to live in a beautiful place, probably from somewhere else, right? But now that they're there, no, I don't want anyone else to come in here and enjoy that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that, you know, if you're going to take and enjoy a place, then you should be open to other people enjoying it as well too. So well, there's the courage
I did
to
have
be
that
disliked.
That's the last time Jimmy comes on, isn't it?
I did have that attitude when I moved here from Sydney. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get there to move here. I'm like, okay, close the borders now. No one else can come.
Yeah,
That's mine.
Yeah. Do you know? So that's my opinion. It's just too many people going, no, I don't want things to change. But you know, you've got to think about the kids and providing opportunities and Australia as a whole, not as a, you know, just your last 20 years that you're going to have in that particular spot. You know, you think about other people and look at how we can make things better. That's my opinion.
When you sort of think about the Olympics, Steve, during the week, about you know, thinking that we should make the decision to cancel the Olympics altogether, and then followed that up with saying you actually don't care if you get voted in or not, right?
I don't.
Yep. So
Genuinely, I don't. I'm happy to say it again. I don't care if I get elected. I'm just telling people the truth. They can take the opportunity that I'm giving them. I mean, I'll give you the political spiel that I say to people out on the street. I've got the experience to walk in and do this job tomorrow. I'm not going to get on a learning tricycle and try to, learn it all over again, because I understand how Parliament works. I understand how bills are written. I know how the system operates. I think that's a tick in the box for anybody running for a job of any kind. I'll be their mercenary in the Queensland Parliament. I would love nothing better to be the independent member for Nicklin, and I would only do it for one term because I just don't want to be involved in politics. I think that building down there is toxic. I just hate being there, but I would do it for 4 years for one reason and one reason alone. That's to make a difference in Queensland. And the seat of Nicklin's actually held the balance of power twice in the last 20 years. So anything's possible. And if I had to negotiate about what's going to happen in government, mate, it'd be showstoppers. Like, we're killing the Olympics. We're putting this family transfer block up, and there'd be a bundle of other stuff that I'd even come and talk to blokes like you about, going, what do you need done? Because I've just got the two blokes who want to be Premier, and they're both going to do whatever I ask them so that they can be the Premier, because they want to sit in that big, cushy leather seat and be remembered in history and have a painting on the wall. They'll give you whatever you like. Pretty simple.
So that's the role. Okay, I'll take that role. Well, when you did come out and said that about the Olympics, right, it's as if you had the confidence to say it because the outcome didn't matter. What I mean by that is, if you get voted in or don't get voted in, it doesn't matter to you, right? Okay. So to come out with a statement like that, you're like, and I don't care what you think of it, but here's my statement. Going back to when it did matter, though, would you make decisions to be liked, or were you making decisions that were always just going to be right? Like, what's the difference between the two?
I've pretty well made decisions that I believe are right. When I was involved in the party, I had to toe the party line. It got to a point where I was within the Liberal Party and the LNP for 11 years. And, mate, I can suck things up a fair bit for a certain amount of time, and then you just get to a point where you go, no, I'm done. I can't do this. I had one of the safest seats in Queensland. I was the member for Buderim. Mate, I'd basically helped structure winning the whole of the Sunshine Coast. There's 2 Labor seats here now, and an independent as well. We owned them all. And I had a big part in playing in that. But you just get to a point where you reflect upon where you are, what you're doing, and what we're doing. And I had a lot of mothers bringing kids to me that had epilepsy, tremors, you name it. And there was a thing called medical cannabis at the time, and they were all going to the black market buying this paste that they were giving to their kids in capsules, and they were giving these kids this stuff, and it was helping them. And they showed it to me, and I just looked at it and I thought, well, what are we doing? We're putting opiate-based drugs into little kids and stupefying them, and this stuff, it works. I've seen it. So I basically drew a line there and then that I had to do whatever it took, and I did. I ended up leaving the LNP, and I ended up doing a deal with the Labor Party that introduced medical cannabis to Queensland. Now, 600,000 people every day are buying medical cannabis across the country. It is a drug that is sold in a chemist shop, prescribed by a doctor, and I had a big part of making that happen. And I look at that in reflection, it's a good thing. Whatever you may think about it, people don't die from smoking pot, and it's not about recreational users. This is about medical pursuits instead of using opiate-based drugs that kill people every year. So they're the tough decisions, and that's kind of what drove me. But there was a few other things that probably upset me as well, and I haven't got into them all, but they dropped the age of anal sex. I think it was from 16 to 14 or from 18 to 16. I just thought,
What? I didn't even... Wait.
mate, I just couldn't vote on it.
I didn't even know this that exists.
Mate, they vote on this shit all the time. And I just told them, I said, I'm not voting on this shit. And I just didn't vote. I wouldn't go and vote.
I didn't even know that was even...
Mate, they do. There's things that happen, and they normally put through...
Got to take it back a bit, sorry.
Oh, no. It gets worse.
Wayne's like, I was missing out all those years.
When they want to put a bill through Parliament, they will have a particular bill. It could be a housing bill, and they'll have all these other initiatives in the end of it. And, mate, they just slide on through, and everybody puts their hands up, and there's these little bloody hidden things in there that you would just go... You pull your hair out. Him and I have already done it. It's just scary stuff. But that's the world we live in. How do you think all these laws get passed?
So that's just, it's
how do
money
you
though. It
change
costs
that,
money
though?
to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And they're doing
but
stupid stuff like that.
everything costs money. But again, it's all about keeping people happy. Keeping minority groups happy, and they're building their voter base. I mean, it's like
Getting people
immigration.
to like you.
Every single person that's probably coming into the country at the moment is probably going to vote Labor because they let them in. They've given them a free life. I mean, you talk to pensioners about what they get and what an immigrant gets from coming in from another country. I mean, it's chalk and cheese. And I just see so many people suffering in our own country that work for a very long time, and I just think people that have paid taxes all their life, if they don't have a big super, which most of the older people don't because it wasn't around. Super didn't start. And 30 years ago, if you were smart, you got into it. But we just had private enterprise. We owned our own businesses, and I only started getting super when I first started in government. Otherwise, all the money that we had coming in the door was going back into the business and just trying to grow the business. That's what you do in business, or you go broke, one or the other. So there's more questions out there than the answers, I'm sorry to say, and a lot of smoke and mirrors, and most people don't see through it. They vote for the same party because mum and dad voted for that party, and I think people are becoming more aware these days, but I hope they are anyway.
I think a lot of people start off with Labor and then they run a business and then they go, oh, we'll vote Liberal.
Actually, had a mate this week. Always used to be Labor. Grew up in coal mining country back home. Now has a business. LNP.
I must say, I did like Bob Hawke though.
I voted for him. I did.
We did a topic a few years ago in Average Joe's, and it was called, when I was writing the topic, I had to come up with some names, and I called it, I think it was called Holden's, Liberal, and the Balmain Tigers. That was the topic. Holden's, Liberal, and the Balmain Tigers. And the reason was...
There's Wayne in a nutshell.
No, because exactly what we're just saying in line with what we just said before. Holden's, Liberal, and the Balmain Tigers. I grew up loving Holden's, voting Liberal, and going for the Balmain Tigers. Not because I thought any of them were good. It's just that that's what I was taught from my dad. Oh, mate, Holden's are the best. So, okay, Holden's are the best. Vote Liberal. Okay, I'm voting Liberal. Oh, the Balmain Tigers are the best. Okay. I never once put thought into any of them. And it wasn't until I got older and started to, not that I understand fully politics anyway, but as I started to understand politics and looked at policies and things, I then stood back and go, I actually, by my own decision now, make this decision to do this and vote this way. But what you're saying is right, Steve. Like, so many people grew up just voting what their parents vote for. I think it was last election. Actually, it would have been the last state election. My daughter was just old enough to vote, and we went down to the local school here, and I was in a lineup, and there was the news there with the camera crew and microphone, and they'd come down the line, missed a whole bunch, and I was one of the people that they missed. But then they got this guy behind me, just a single bloke there flicking through his phone, and he would have been his first year too, so he looked about 18 or 19, flicking through his phone, and they've come up to him and go, oh, mate, so here today voting for the first time? He's like, oh, yeah. Who are you voting for? And he goes, oh, probably just Labor. Okay, and why is that? I don't know, mum votes Labor. And I'm thinking, really, is this the generation? Like, there's no thought into proper set out policy, or there's no, it's just because, oh yeah, because I was that person growing up. Oh, Dad said vote Liberal, so you just vote Liberal. And then you stop and you think about it, you look at it and you go, okay, I now see.
Does that bring into the case where maybe we shouldn't have mandatory voting? And it's only people that actually want to vote?
I don't know. I think, personally, I think people should vote because even, I need to get this into the right sort of context. The reason why I believe people should vote is because at the end of the day, you are part of the responsible outcome or you're part of the problem. And I think we all have to take responsibility. And I think that's what voting should be about. I mean, the system, voting, it's insane. It really is. I mean, I actually don't mind the New Zealand system where it's proportional representation. I mean, I remember, and you're probably going to ask me this question later on, but I jumped from the LNP to One Nation, and I led the party in 2017, and One Nation got 23% of the primary vote in 61 seats that they ran in across the state out of the 93 seats. That extrapolated back to about 13.85%. But it was better than the Greens. It was the best result One Nation had ever got, but they only got one seat in Parliament after picking up 13% of the vote. So really, a party who gets 13% of the vote should get 13% of the seats. and the Liberal Party should get whatever they got. I think they got 32%, Labor got roughly the same, the Greens got 10%. I mean, I think we need a mix of people in Parliament that can have robust discussions, and I don't really like the Greens, I'll be honest. And it might be, as you said before, it's just
You're in good company.
You're in good company here, buddy.
You're good, mate.
You're in good company here.
Well, mate, they've just got these philosophies that I don't agree
Next
with.
week, Green Senator coming on. No.
Well,
he's not.
I honestly believe that you need all these different ideas, and you need this homogeneity of people, because you should be able to produce a really good outcome out of it and have the debates. Like they might want to talk about why wind turbines are the best thing since sliced bread, but then they've got to listen to the other side of the argument. Well, all that concrete that went into the ground to hold them wind turbines down, it took a lot of power to create that and a lot of energy, and those big steel towers that are holding them blades up, that took a whole lot of energy and steel, and we had to mine it out of the ground. And, they're the sort of conversation we've got to have. And then we can go a little bit further when you're destroying the national parks, where you're building those great big wind towers and putting 18-metre wide roads in through our pristine environment to save the koalas, and normally they would protect. But no, we're mowing them down because we need these UBIT wind towers. And solar panels, the same deal. And we start to talk about nuclear, and we talk about coal and making a transition. And, there could be some wonderful ways of making energy in the future. But at the moment, coal's king, and nuclear is probably, we should have been nuclear a long time ago, but nobody's been brave enough to talk about it. I'd support nuclear in the mix 100%, but I like hydro too. I mean, all things have got their place, but it's got to be cost efficient, and it's got to give the end user the cheapest energy in the world. That should be the target. And how do we make that happen?
Yeah.
Sorry, again,
Don't be sorry.
I do talk too much.
No, we love it, mate. When you switched from the Liberal Party over to One Nation, when One Nation, I guess, was introduced to us as the Australian people, that whole party as a whole got labelled as un-Australian and racist, and just so many labels like that just instantly were thrown on it. Why would you switch from Liberal, which was already, you put yourself in the firing line, to be disliked by decisions you made?
100%.
Why switch from something like that into something so much more? You're putting yourself to be disliked far more. What goes through your head to do that?
But the logic was really, really straightforward. I thought that there would end up being a coalition between the LNP and One Nation. I thought One Nation would have picked up 13 to probably 18 seats, and it would have been a marriage made in heaven, to be honest, because you would have had those robust conversations in the party room where that doesn't happen. They just get told what to do, and they put their hand up and go, yep, we're going to drop the age of anal sex from 18 to 16, and you're voting for it even if you don't like it. In Amanda Stoker's case, and she's going to be the member for Redlands, she's totally against abortion. She's going to put her hand up and say, it's okay, because she's a member of the party. Otherwise, she'll get punted. She'll keep her mouth shut until after the election. I mean, that's just their realities. So I thought, I left one of the safest seats in Queensland. If anybody think I did this job for money, mate, I knew I was really going to be up against it. But if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And that was what I did. That's the absolute reason behind it. Was the medical cannabis was the main driving point, but there were so many others. I mean, I think the Liberal Party, or the LNP, it's lost its way. And it's all about power. It's about power. It's about prosperity for themselves. But, and Labor is 100 times worse. But I call the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, mate, they're all part of, two wings of politics, same bird.
Discover multi-award winning real estate with podcast sponsor One Life Property Group, based on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, specialising in everything from high-end duplexes to multi-residential developments, ensuring the highest quality workmanship. Visit onelifepropertygroup.com.au today to achieve excellence in your next property development.
It's actually disappointing to hear you say, when you mentioned that lady before about being against abortion, but then when push comes to shove and a hand needs to raise, it goes in the opposite direction. Because you would think, or you would hope, that when someone's in a position of power like politicians are, that there are times, and that being one of them, but there are times when you do need the courage to be disliked because of the right outcome. But yet they swing the other way, which is extremely sad.
It disappoints me, but we are living in a bit of an illusion. I mean, people involved in politics, and it saddens me, and I'm not jealous of them. I just wish we could do so much better. I mean, that's why I would love to see, take a leaf out of your book, the average Joe actually getting involved in politics, and they bloody well should. I mean, the Constitution was structured in such a way that men and women from across the country, and you've got to remember the states existed before the Federation existed, which was the federal parliament. If all of the state governments tomorrow came together and decided to say we're not having the Australian government anymore, they could tear it down. They could vote to tear down the Commonwealth of Australia. They created the Commonwealth of Australia. That's the real truth. Most people don't understand that.
Wow, no, I didn't know that.
Well, that's the fact of life. But, you know, the people that we have in there, I'm sure there are some good people, but they need to be encouraged to put up their hand. They need to push back. And I get this about, yeah, we're on the one team. We've all got to stick together. It's for the good and better of mankind. Well, if it was for the good and better of mankind, we wouldn't have gone through all the COVID shit that we went through. We wouldn't have had states closed down. We wouldn't have been lied to by the medical fraternity. And I'm jumping topics on you, not because I want to, it just come to me. It's probably a really good example to use that they were forcing people to get an untried drug pumped into their body because everybody was going to die. COVID today, it's more contagious now than it's ever been. We've all probably had it, got it, gonna get it. And I think you blokes aren't looking like you're about to die. And I'm not either. And I never
It's because we didn't get the vaccine.
It's
Mate.
because we
Yeah, I didn't get it. Are you?
I've had worse hangovers.
Sorry, Jamie.
To be honest. So
Well, mate, it is scary, scary stuff. I mean, you know, you look at it, it's like we just went through a trial and we failed. You know, we allowed them to lock us down. They made us stay in our houses. You know, we kind of have a half smile on our face when we say it, but a government told us to stay in our frigging houses because death's waiting for you outside. Death wasn't there. You know, I believe COVID was real, but to the extent they propagated it, I think there was other reasons behind it. And I think Pfizer and a lot of our medical institutions made lots and lots of money, and I think lots and lots of people have got very, very sick, and many, many people have died. And don't mention the word AstraZeneca because it doesn't exist anymore. You know, it was tested, tried and true. And I remember Jeanette Young, she's now the Governor-General of Queensland, and she was the Chief Health Officer when I was debating with her about medical cannabis. And I remember her directly, and I'll look into the camera just so you're not missing any of these words. She told me that medical cannabis will never become common everyday use because it has to go through a 10-year trial. Think about that, Jeanette, because all the drugs that you promoted didn't. And there are people who have died. AstraZeneca has taken off the market because it killed people and it maimed many more. And most of those other drugs have done exactly the same thing. And most of us know somebody who is either sick or has died, who has got recurring cancer. You name it, it's out there, it's everywhere. Sorry, that's a point, and it's a burr in my saddle.
No, you go for it, mate. You go for it.
well, that is the courage to be disliked, just there, isn't it?
Absolutely. You
know,
that's
said
right.
What you want, yeah.
I'm just telling the truth. I mean, the problem is what I just said is the truth. I mean, we all remember it. The government said to us, if you don't have these needles, you won't catch it, you won't spread it. Well, mate, ask anybody who's had the needle. They've had it, and they've probably spread it. You know, it ripped families apart. It destroyed businesses. I mean, it put our economy probably back 10 years. There was no winners except the pharmaceutical companies and all of those politicians that were in charge at that time. If you notice, none of them are there anymore. They're all gone.
Yeah, well.
On pretty good retirement packages as well, I bet.
If put yourself in ScoMo's position right now during COVID, do you think the influence of, because look, I'm on the same page as you when it comes to the whole vaccine and stuff, and I know Mike and a lot of our friends are all the same. Put yourself in ScoMo's position right now and COVID's here. Do you think that he was there going, I think this is a sham, I think this is made up, I don't think it's as bad as what it is, but at the risk of being disliked, I need to make a decision that's going to keep me liked and keep me looking like I'm making the right one, even though deep down you think you didn't?
I'm probably in a privileged position that I knew Greg Hunt personally. He's a friend of mine. He was the health minister for Australia at that time. And when COVID first hit, I was like everybody else. I'm thinking Spanish flu killed, 50, 100 million people, 1919, roughly around that time. I thought it was fair dinkum, I'll be honest, because I rang Greg and I had a chat to him. I said, Greg, listen, mate, Christmas Island, it's empty. Anybody coming into the country that even looks like they got that, put them there. And he did. He did it the next day. And, mate, that's how serious I thought it was. And then I started to really do a bit of research and study. My wife's an asthmatic. And, last thing I wanted to do is lose her. We've been married since 1986. She's the love of my life, mate, and I feel very blessed, and I didn't want her to get sick. And I think 6 months has moved along, and they've come up with these wonder drugs that they wanted us all to take. And then I kind of reflected, Jeanette's message to me with cannabis, and I'm kind of going, no, something's wrong here. People aren't dropping in the streets, and it's not looking like it was. And we rode that thing out for a while, and we just thought, no, we're not going to get this bloody nettle. Let's just wait and see. And my kids, both of them, they both had two. And actually, I shouldn't be saying that on air. That's their private lives. But there were many, many people forced to have the jab that they shouldn't have bloody had. We've lived through it. Deb and I, we make up our own hydroxychloride at home, and it's made of grapefruit peels and lemon peels, and you just boil it up, and we have a couple of teaspoons of that. It's healthy for you anyway. I mean, my grandmother used to eat orange peels and lemon peels. Never understood why. I thought she's a bit mad, but must have been pretty healthy for her because she never got sick, lived to be a ripe old age, and I think we need to. So
what do you make? Sorry, you take
natural
grapefruit.
hydroxychloroquine.
I make it. It's the same stuff you can buy. It tastes like quinine. I don't know if you know quinine. Quinine's used to ward off malaria. When I was living in the Papua New Guinea, we used to take it every day. It stops you from catching malaria. Quinine is a basis to that drug.
Okay.
Anyway, hydroxychloride, you get grapefruit, 3 grapefruit, tear the peel, you wash them, tear the peels off in a pot about this big, and 3 lemons, cut them in half, drain them, cut them into pieces, put it all in, and we use rainwater. We've got rainwater tanks at home, and we boil it up for 2 hours, and you can't let any of the steam get out. And we just pour that into a bloody 1 litre Scotch bottle, which we keep in the fridge, and we have 2 tablespoons of that every day. And we take a multivitamin with that, and I'm 63, I feel reasonably healthy, and we didn't catch COVID. So, they didn't use that. Clive Palmer brought in millions and millions of doses, and the government said, "Oh no, we can't use that because it's free." Sorry, I'm ad-libbing it, and we can't have the other one. I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Ivermectin.
There we go. Thank you.
Why do you know that?
Well, it's true. I mean,
Me and Mr. Palmer did a few.
It was used in India. It was used in Africa.
I bought some from a mate.
Worked really well for some reason, but we all had to get the jab. So I just think the court's out on that stuff, and I think we should have had the conversation about it. We should have open, frank conversations about it, and they were never had. It was my way or the highway, and hence, many, many people have become very, very sick, and many people have died, and there have been complications, and that's the real truth, and show me that it hasn't.
So on that, through that period, we would have been watching the TV back through COVID and listening to Jeanette Young and these other guys, and you would listen to what they say, and you would go, that makes absolutely no sense. And like you're saying one thing, and you're saying it like it's a bad thing, but when you actually boil it down and look at it, it was nonsense. Were they just railroaded into towing the party line, or were they getting paid? There's 2 ways here.
I reckon I'm going with the second one. I mean, most people who work in the medical field are sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. My cousin, one is a dermatologist and the other one's a cardiac surgeon, and they travel all over the world because they get sponsored by pharmaceutical companies to talk at different places, and they stay in lovely hotels, and they got a pretty good life. I mean, I don't hold that against them. They're professional people. They've studied hard, worked hard, but to have that conversation with them today, they're still hell-bent on after number 6, saying if you didn't have this, you'd die. The only reason we're around today is because you die, and it does frustrate me because those frank, open conversations haven't been had, and nobody's willing to apologise and say, well, I'm sorry that needle that we got you all to have, it didn't stop you from catching it, it didn't stop you from spreading it, and there were a few nasty side effects, and some people have died. Nobody wants to admit to that, and it's real.
Yeah. Well, there is alternatives out there because my son was born with like really bad eczema, like horrible eczema. Like I think they were saying it was like the 1.5 5 worst eczema sufferers in Australia. So, you know, wrapped every night, like cream every night, like all that sort of stuff. So we sent him over to Avene, a hydrotherapy place in France, 2 years in a row. And he still gets spots and stuff like that. But we don't use any steroid cream on him or anything like that. We just use moisturizer and an antihistamine. And, you know, you know him and you wouldn't have any idea
wouldn't have
that he's
thought.
had any skin issues whatsoever. So there is alternatives out there to that sort of stuff. So it costs $30,000 a pop, and I had friends and stuff chip in to help us do that. But you know what I mean? It's
Wow.
No, I think you're onto something. I mean, the medical fraternity and pharmaceutical companies, they like to make a profit, and that's okay. But it's what are you putting into your body? I mean, I'd love to give you the exact number now, but it'd be interesting just to put out in front of the world how many needles and vaccines have babies got to have now by the time they're 2 years old, and it's probably much more than that. And I haven't got the exact number in front of me, so I don't want to quote it, but it's pretty bloody insane. I mean, God gave us this body. It's pretty special. It's autonomous. We don't have a lead hooked into us. We don't have to charge up. You know, we eat, we drink. As long as we eat reasonably healthy and we drink plenty of water, you're going to probably live a long time. And if you treat your body well, but all those traditional medicines that we used to use, they're no good anymore, because you need to buy something from the pharmaceutical company, and if you don't buy them, we can give you a drug and it's going to do something to you, and there might be a bit of a side effect, but we've got another drug that can help you with that. And that's what it's all about. It's a Ponzi scheme of medication, and most people are on tons and tons of medication, and they make a lot of money out of it. It's a recurring product. I mean, you sell a lot of something, you make a lot of money. It might only be small money you're making, but the more you sell, the more you make.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, it is actually part of the French healthcare system. They send burn victims and stuff like that to go do this hydrotherapy. It's pretty cool. Sorry, Mike.
No, go. It's all good.
Oh.
Wasn't important.
Oh, Mike's here, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, Mike.
Looking at Australian politics right now, is there a decision, if you were top dog, you're the one making the decisions, you're in charge, is there a decision right now that you go, it needs to be made, it should be made, but if it was made, you'd be very, very disliked for it? What's that decision?
But I'll give you my game on Australia at the moment, and it's a bit of a global political solution, actually. I said this to my pastor the other night, and he goes, "That's really weird, mate, because I've thought about that." I went to Taipei in 2006, and I went over on a federal government delegation, and I only got dropped into it because the state member who was supposed to go couldn't go, and they just asked me, and yeah, okay. So Deb and I ended up going to Taipei. It was I'll call it a junket, but I got to meet the president of Taipei, but it was so interesting because we had a briefing about what China was doing. You know, the 3 rings of expansion, and the first ring of expansion takes out the Philippines and a whole number of countries around there, and Taiwan, of course. They'll become under Chinese sovereignty, but we're in the second ring. So, you know, get ready for what's coming. Our government have known since 2006 what China's ambitions are, and they're going to get a whole lot bigger, and things are going to change a lot in the future, and we can see that happening with the islands that they've built. But my plan is why don't we talk to the Taipei government? They're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They're technologically advanced like you wouldn't believe, and they're very, very similar, their democracy, to ours. And this is going to probably blow you away because it goes right against the immigration thing. I reckon you could make a transition to move the people of Taiwan to Australia, but at the same time, you do it over a 20-year period and you drought-proof our country. You turn Australia into the greenest country in the world by putting a couple of nuclear power plants with desalination plants in North Queensland, where we normally get flooding rain. It comes down through the guts of Australia anyway. There's a program called the Bradfield Scheme. He came up with it, I think it's 1936, and it was about drought-proofing the country. Well, I want to do that on steroids, but I want to use other people's money to do it. And I think if you could convince the Taiwanese people to come here, we could end up with one of the strongest, smartest countries in the world. They make all the computer chips. They're really well heeled. They're smart people. They would assimilate with us pretty well. And I know it's right outside of the box, but you would solve a bit of a problem stopping potentially a third world war where China's going to take them out anyway. So give them another door to walk through. And I just think we could do a lot there. Nuclear power, Yep, I think it's a lay-down misere. It should be used in a whole lot of ways. We should become a manufacturing mega power in the world. We export raw iron ore to other countries. We have the ability to melt it here, send the finished product all over the world. I mean, that's just a laydown. And there was an old guy that I spoke to because I actually put the idea of this hybrid of the Bradfield scheme up at the 2017 election, because if we got elected, it was one of the other programs I wanted to put into play. But so our guy rang me up and he goes, Steve, he said, have you ever thought about when you're actually building all these dams, weirs and channels and pipelines and drilling through mountains, he said, you're going to run across a whole lot of minerals. He said, you might run into rare earth, you might run into gold, you might run into silver, you might run into, you just rattle them off. And he goes, you know what, I'd probably pay for the whole project. And I thought, geez, you're a bloody clever guy, because we all go out there looking for gold and all these different things, but when you're building dams and weirs and channels right across the whole of Australia, obviously you're going to run over some of this stuff and you mine it and you use that resource. I think we've got to think outside of the box. We've got to think more positively. But I would, again, this is another bit of a greeny idea. You might like this. I'd like all the rare and endangered animals on the planet to be in the guts of Australia, because we could have rhinos. Believe it or not, we've got the biggest camel population and the best camels in the world, because the Afghans left them here in the early 1800s and we started driving trucks around. Made a big difference. We didn't need camels anymore, but they are the best breed in the whole world. They're right here in Australia. And you mix a bit of water with that country, you can grow anything. So I just think the potential that we've got to make an extreme difference, and on a global level, we should be a superpower. Not that we want to go to war. I reckon I'd love to see Australia that we could defend ourselves against anybody who wanted to come here. And, I think we should go nuclear for a whole lot of different reasons, for defence purposes, for energy purposes, for medical purposes. I mean, we bring nuclear isotopes into Australia for treating people with radiation, to help save them from cancer. We import that shit. Why don't we make our own?
We've got one of the largest deposits of uranium.
Yeah, we got plenty.
Best quality too. So, yeah. So
It's actually a smart thing. I hadn't even thought about it. It makes perfect sense.
I have heard of that project before, the dam project. So,
well, I just think I was having this conversation with my wife the other night. We were just talking generally because we get a lot of time to spend together, which is great. My dad, he went to the Rockhampton Grammar School, and I'm trying to think of the name of the tennis player, Rod Laver. Him and Rod Laver went to the same school, and there was a story I could tell you there, but we haven't got time for that today. He wrote a story. They asked him, what do you want to do when you grow up? Write a story. And you got to think, he's born in 1937, 38, I think it was, 37. He wrote a story. He said, I want to be a pilot of an aeroplane that carries 100 people. He got laughed out of the room. Laughed out of the room. Never going to happen. They don't have airplanes that carry 100 people. Well, no, we do today, actually. We carry 300 or 400 people today. So you've got to have vision. You've got to see things to the future. And I just think it's probably a good example. What may seem like a mad idea that I've just put forward relating to Taiwan, I think it would be amazing. And, I can't tell you that the Taiwan people would want to come here, but, I mean, if you've got a choice between being annihilated by China at some stage or setting up in a place that's kind of down in our part of the world, and you don't have to live near the beach. I mean, I grew up in the country. Country's great. You bring water to that country out there, it's even greater. And I just think we could do so much more. We're fringe dwellers. We all want to live near the beach.
I have a theory about country people where if you grow up in a country town, you're pretty like true blue and you tell the truth and you're straight up and you know what I mean, you call a spade sort of thing. I think the dishonest people move more to the cities because they can hide. Yet in a country town, you get kicked out. You know what I mean? Everyone knows that you're full of shit. If you grow up in a country town, mate, don't bother with that guy because he's
nailed it.
Yeah. So
It's a pretty interesting way of thinking about it, actually.
well,
Just lost a lot of listeners, didn't we?
Just looking at analytics, the whole city dropped off.
And they're some of the best people, like even to this day, like my mates up there, like people go there and go, wow, your friends are so amazing, and you've got such a good group of friends and all the rest of it. But that's just who
Normal.
they were. Do you know what I mean? So, and that was when I moved to the Gold Coast. That was one of the things I really. So I moved from Yeppoon to Port Douglas, another small town. Everyone was awesome. Everyone was friendly. You could take everyone at their word. Move to the Gold Coast and you think these people are great, but they're some of the most two-faced people that you'd ever, and fakest people that you ever meet in your life, you know? So not all of them. Like Gold Coast is one of my favorite places to live, disclaimer, when you get a good group of people around you. Yeah, but sifting through that and getting that good group of people was difficult because, you know, I always took everyone face value. Like I think that who people say they are who they are. You know what I mean? Because that's what you, as you said, you grow up like that. You go, oh yeah, that's just what people are like, and then
I reckon you're right.
Yeah,
It's interesting when you think about it like that, because if, I guess in line with what we're talking about now, the courage to be disliked, right? When you look at, you know, what we aim for, you know, everyone likes being liked, okay? No one likes being disliked, but sometimes the tough decisions make you disliked. But thinking about like difference between country and city, and let's just use that and call it environment. Looking at the difference of the environment that you're in, if you're in a country environment, it's like you can't afford to be disliked because news travels too fast amongst a smaller amount of people. Whereas if you're in the city, it's like people can afford to be disliked more because news is going to take a lot more longer to travel.
well, I don't know though, because one of the worst things for me is fake people. So people will say something in front of your face and then talk shit to you behind your back. You know what I mean? I just went through that at work, and I wanted to rip this guy's head off, like literally. And the boss is like, no, don't say anything. And I was like, no,
Call it out.
I am ready to go. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm well, you know me, I'm not really an aggro guy or whatever. But so I think in the country though,
You're just a bear, mate.
I think in the country though, like you have to actually say what you believe, because if it's found out later,
That's what I'm saying. You can't afford to be disliked.
then you're tarred.
Yeah.
Mate, the country people have just got brilliant bullshit detectors.
Yeah.
You're going to call it for what it is. My grandfather used to say to me, he said, Steve, he said, you're not smart enough to lie because you got to remember every single lie you've ever said, because one day you're going to get caught out. Oh, I just, you know, it was good advice. It was real good advice. And I would say that to anybody out there. I mean, you know, you're going to lie if you want to, but they're going to catch you and you're going to look pretty stupid, and it just flows on from there. I mean, it's just not worth it. And this is, you know, we need a good helping of the truth, and people don't always want to consume the truth. It doesn't taste so good, even in today's society. I mean, people are not prepared to have that frank discussion about what we went through with COVID. You know, it is now behind us, the majority of it, and I think they're probably going to pull it on again not too far away. I think we're going to have some other, be it monkeypox or, you know, there's a couple that I've been told about. I get information from all over the world these days. 90% of it I just don't get to read because there's so much of it coming through. But we are living in very, very terrifying times. I mean, I spoke to a very good friend of mine the other day who's got a pretty big business in Nambour, and he'd be mid-40s. And I said, where do you think everything's going? He said, well, I don't know what's going to happen first, the financial world meltdown or World War III. He said, could be both. I mean, this is, I don't know what you guys hear about or think about. I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air right now. I mean, the presidential election, you've got Trump and Harris, and, you know, they're trying to shoot Trump over there. I think 3 times they've tried to get him. Now, I don't think they've tried to kill the other lot at all. You know, I don't know if they're worth a bullet or whatever. I don't know. I've got no idea. You know, they've spent a lot of money trying to get rid of this other bloke, but I'm not going to say who's good, who's bad, but you know, we just need some real good helpings of the truth, and we've got to accept it. And it's probably not going to taste too good, but it's the only way that we're going to resolve the problems that we've got today. I mean, I think you've nailed it with your show, the headline for it. I mean, being popular, it's nice, feels good, warm. Telling the truth, it's pretty ugly. Not going to make a whole lot of friends, but we're going to keep going for a long, long time if we do that. And if we're bullshitting to one another, you're going to feel warm and friendly for a little while, but then you're going to find out about that bloke who spoke behind your back, and you're not going to be happy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having a conversation around this table. That's the short version of what's happened to us all. We've been bullshitted to by a lot of politicians. They're telling us how good the world is and everything's going great and inflation's coming down. But I mean, today, if you did the real numbers on inflation, it's probably 23% compounding over the last 3 years. Things haven't gone down. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but, you know, wages aren't going up. So How do people survive? I mean, I remember buying a taco 5 years ago in a packet and about this big, and Deb put them on dinner the other night, and they're this big. And I'm kind of thinking, well, there's the economy. Our taco's half the size of what it used to be, and I'm paying twice the price.
Yep.
It's true. I actually mentioned that to Lisa a little while ago when we went out for dinner. I was saying, like, I get it. Like, inflation's hit. We're all experiencing it. Everyone hates it. And it's if restaurants are combating it one of two ways. They're either upping the price of all their stuff, or they're halving the size of the meals, because we're getting meals and we're like, I'm pretty sure it was twice as big last time we came here. Or is that just me?
Well, that's just the justification for 2 dinners, isn't it? Yeah.
Put the bag of lollies on the way
I need to
home.
order 2 of these because inflation's made it smaller.
The Big Macs used to be twice this.
Need one for each hand, yeah. But I like what you're saying, Jamie, about, with honesty and dishonesty and stuff like that, because I think, if anything now, because people like to people please, and I guess in sticking with the topic here about, being liked and disliked and things like that, I think, if anything, people aim to be liked so much that it sometimes increases the amount of dishonesty, because people are willing to risk their integrity and risk being dishonest at the fear of, well, I don't want to be disliked about it. Whereas having the courage to be disliked because the truth is actually what's needed, but people shy away. So it's as if this whole people-pleasing thing, in order to stay liked or be liked, people shy away from truth. So it's like dishonesty increases.
Well, I think a lot of the time people are doing it because, so if you're worried about being disliked, you're worried about yourself. So the people who overcome that are more focused on making a difference to other people. Do you know what I mean? To the wider community. Because, when I was growing up, all my friends thought I was going to be a police officer. I don't know why, but, maybe because every time they got in trouble, I was there. But they thought I was going to be a police officer. And I've got family in the police, so I was talking to them about it, yeah. And I said, yeah, I would love it. Like, I would love to be able to protect people. I would love to be able to help people. I would love to be able to make a difference. Like, I think that would be like a great career. And he said, don't do it. He said, don't do it, because you are there on everyone's worst day of their life. Yeah. And for that moment, that one person might like you, but if it's against them, you're the most hated person, and you're hated in general because you're just trying to keep the peace. And because of that, because you see the bad side of society every single day, you get jaded. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, that makes so much sense. And he's like, and I don't want that for you. Yeah. I was thinking about getting into politics too. My sister was like, don't you dare do that. Rah, rah, everyone's going to hate you. And I'm like, why? Because it'd be like, but it would be good to actually make a difference to stuff.
I've always thought about it. I've always thought about politics.
Yeah.
But
It's always been
you're not going to
mine.
make money in politics. End of story.
Oh, no, I don't want to do it now. I'm
No, well, you're just not. It's not somewhere where you're going to make money. I went backwards. I should have stayed. I reflect on my life. Should have stayed in private enterprise. We're doing really well, but it's inbuilt. It's in us. You've either got it or you haven't. You either want to make a difference or you don't. I mean, if it's all about looking after Steve Dickson, I should have stayed in private enterprise. I should have kept on making money, and that should have been my goal. And I was driven by making money as a young bloke. There was nothing more important to me. I used to, my dad had a caravan park in Brisbane. It was the biggest in Queensland at the time. And I used to clean the washing machines when I come home from school, and I got paid $10 a week for doing that. And we had a swimming pool in the middle of our house in Carina in Brisbane. It's Carindale now. Anyway, I would pile people to our swimming pool and charge them 30 cents a head. And in our garage, I had 4 pinball machines, a pool table, and a jukebox, and I'd get half the cop from that as well. Mate, I was 12 years old. Mate, I had $4,000 by the time I was 14, and they were all in $2 notes, and I used to iron them because then I put them in order, numerological order, because there used to be a competition on 4BC radio about, $2 note, lucky $2 note competition. They'd have a number. Never won, but geez, I tried hard. And those notes were very well ironed. Old paper back in the day too, but it just, different things drive you at different times in your life. You get married, you have children, you start to see where the world's going. Your mind opens, you become a little bit more aware of what drives people, what doesn't, what makes things happen in the economy, what makes things happen as far as rules and regulations are concerned. And, mate, we're all dictated to by government. Local government, state government and federal government, they basically have a big bearing on how your life's going to go. And at the moment, it's turning to custard. It's all going in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we are charged so much for the most minutiae issues that we shouldn't be. I mean, council makes a whole lot of money out of parking fines. You come home, you park on your footpath, they'll fine you for it. I mean, really? It's just terrifying what you can be fined for these days. And, the fees and charges, whatever you want to do. I mean, you want to put a shed up in your yard. You used to just be able to do it. And I understand. They'll tell you there's all these bloody wind ratings and, if you don't build it the right way, the sun may reflect off it and, it'll get in the koala's eyes or it'll, do something wrong that, we need to really get a good understanding. And that land that you used to think was yours, we want that as an environmental corridor now so that, the shingleback, frilly lizard from, Peruvian jungles that somehow escaped here a million years ago, we can keep him going.
And God forbid you want to cut down a tree on your property.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've never, ever done that.
What, cut a tree down?
There's been a lot of bushfires on my block. Yeah,
When I say I've never cut a tree down, I mean a tree. I've never cut a tree.
they go in pairs.
Lots of
Go in groups of 10.
But also, that's probably why you started Average Joe's, was to make a difference.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, you have invested so much money into this. None of us get paid for doing it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Was that a
Because
dig? You want to get paid? Is that what we just...
no. But if anyone's
This
looking
is
for
the birth
sponsorship,
of Wayne Taylor for Prime Minister.
anyone
isn't
wants
it?
to be a
Here we go.
sponsor. But for yourself, it's the same thing. Like, this is your opportunity for you to help people. So I think that is why, we do what we do and why we come in every Friday to make a difference.
I've only known you guys sitting around this table today. It's the first time we've ever met. I haven't met you guys before. I mean, you would fit into a party room fine and you'd probably be smarter than the first 50% that walked into the room. That's the truth. No. I'm just giving you the facts. I mean, I used
He's
to
just
think
trying to be
when
liked.
Mate, when I got involved in politics, I thought I was going to go in there and I'm going to meet some really, really smart people. Like, this is going to be, I was just waiting with bated breath. Like, this is going to be really, really exciting. Wasn't I disappointed? I really was disappointed. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Half the people don't understand the legislation they're voting on. They don't read it. They just go into the party room and, oh yeah, we're voting on this particular issue today, and when the time comes, you'll vote this way. Otherwise, you'll get disendorsed next time you put your hand up, run. That's how it works. That's the system.
Is that what leads more people to independent?
I think it is today. I don't know what's going to come out of the Queensland election. I mean, if you believe the media today, it's a bit like the Storms winning the grand final. The LNP is probably supposed to get a win like we did in 2012. I don't think that'll happen. I think the LNP may win. It may be a hung parliament. I have a feeling Robbie Katter and co may end up having the balance of power. And to be honest, I'd like to see that because it would make them all accountable. Like it's nice to be hanging on by a bit of a string sometime in politics because they've actually got to do their job. If you get a big win, they're accountable to nobody. Something you probably don't know, most people won't know it. Queensland is the only government in the country who doesn't have an upper house, which is called the House of Review, the Senate. It was abolished by the Labor Party in 1922. So the only unicameral government in our country where you don't have a House of Review. And what that means is basically you've got a lower house and an upper house. These mob put bills together, they vote on those bills, and then they get signed off. Right now under unicameral government, you go to see the governor, she signs them off, the three ministers go along because I used to do it, and that becomes law. This way, they vote on the bills, then it goes to the upper house. These guys have got to make a decision. If they don't agree with it, it's canned. It's over. So that's where it finishes. They agree with it, then it goes to the governor to be signed off. So it's a bit of a handbrake. That's why they have it in the upper house in federal government. And if one party controls all of that, you got problems.
Could you imagine how much red tape Queensland would have if they had two houses?
Well, I don't know. I think the upper house would probably abolish a whole lot of that red tape and would have never let it happen. That's the flip side of it. I mean, that's the scary thing that a lot of people don't understand. I mean, it wouldn't be about having more politicians. You basically cut the lower house probably down to 3/4 of the size, and you'd put 25% of the people who probably would have got elected to the lower house, they'd be in the upper house. But the way the upper house is always voted in, it's on that percentage basis that I spoke about before. You've got to get so much of a percent. And that's how the Australian Senate's voted in as well. So you would have a lot of ordinary people. They might be lawyers, they might be garbage men, they might be plumbers, they might be ex-servicemen. Who knows? We need a mixture of people in politics that can bring all different views to the table, because that's how you run a really good democracy. And I started to say it much earlier, and I wandered away from answering the question. The way people used to get elected to Parliament, they were your local people in your local area who actually gave a shit. It wasn't because you joined a party. They were all independents originally, and they would drive their trucks or cars or whatever down to Canberra or down to George Street in Brisbane, and they'd stay there for a few weeks, and then they'd drive back up to Rocky or out west to Quilpie, and, they'd get information from their local community. These are all the things that are going wrong. We need another rail line out of here. We need, assistance for the farmers. There's a drought on. We need some help, more fodder, more water, whatever it may be. They were your local go-to people. We don't have them anymore. We just got yes people.
Mm.
And we've got yes people because people don't have the courage to actually...
They don't want to get involved. And I personally, I don't blame them. It's ugly, it's hard, but things that are ugly and hard are some of the things you've got to fix sometimes. Otherwise, the problem festers and gets worse. And I think it's festered and got worse, and it's as bad as it can be. I mean, they're all admitting in there that, we're running these campaigns on lies and scare tactics. I mean, what a great way to win a campaign. Something you would be proud of to get your kids to do. No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, this is what I'm going to do. It's like, don't vote for these people because they said this. You know what I mean? Like, it's,
You can ask any hard questions you got, gents. I'm happy to answer the best of my ability. And if I can't give you an answer, I'll just say I don't know.
Well, when it comes to... Everyone likes the feeling of being liked, right? And everyone hates the feeling of being disliked, right? The feeling of being liked, I guess, to some degree adds to some kind of... Well, my understanding would be, it gives a sense of validation. When you feel liked, you feel validated. Do you think it's the opposite effect then if you are disliked? Does it take away the value of a man?
I can give you a very strange answer. There was a bloke that used to walk around here, and you would have heard of him. He's pretty popular. He called Jesus. And, mate, he was a pretty good bloke. And he used to go out there. They called him a king. They called him a lord. They called him a warrior. They called him a scholar. And he was none of those things. He was just a really decent sort of bloke that goes around and talked to people and helped a lot of people, healed people, brought some people back from the dead. I mean, pretty out there sort of stuff. They nailed him up on a cross, mate. Speared him in the chest, let him bleed to death in front of his mother. You reckon they liked him? I think they just liked to kill him. And I think a whole lot of people did like him. He's become the most popular person on the whole planet that has ever lived that we all know about. And you think, did he care? He just told the truth. And I'd advise people to start walking in his shoes as much as they can, because I think we're living in times that are bit like Sodom and Gomorrah these days. Nobody gives a shit. Everybody's doing the wrong thing. The economy's out of control. Governments really don't care about their people. And I think things we probably discussed earlier about abortion, or just about the way people are living their lives these days, we all make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. But the beauty with Jesus was he actually forgave everybody and gave us an opportunity that we could actually one day hopefully go to heaven and live with God, live, like he's lived. And I just think that's probably the best example I can give you about somebody who's probably hated by so many and crucified and killed in front of his mum. I think we probably all need to take a bit of a leaf out of his book, and none of us compare ourselves to Jesus by any means, but to live by that philosophy, I don't think is such a bad thing. Help people where you can. Try to forgive people. And I'll be honest with you, as I said before we started this meeting today, I've been talking to a pastor in recent months, and he's probably helped heal me a little bit, because I've carried a lot of hatred in me with people that have done me over. I believe they've done me over, and I've started to forgive, and I've started to forget, which is a big step for me in the right direction. It's made me a I believe, a stronger person and to be able to live my life probably a little bit better. Again, that's a long answer and it was a big one to a big question.
I got a question for you, Wayne. Is there people that you dislike?
Is there people I dislike?
Yeah.
Today,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and do you care that if they don't like you?
It's an interesting question because this falls into conversations that you and I have had in the past about the whole, play Mr. Nice Guy. I don't like being disliked.
Yeah.
It actually plays on me because it challenges my whole thought of, I think you get yourself into a rhythm of life where you do your absolute best. And if you're living to what you believe is, I'm going to live a certain way and I'm going to give it my 100% and I'm going to live in accordance to, in my case, it's a faith that I have. So I live in accordance to that faith. So when I'm disliked, you go, what have I done wrong? If I do things wrong, though, I'm the first person to go, mate, hit me with it. Because if there's room for improvement, buddy, I want to know where it is and I want to improve. So when I'm disliked, I go, what is it that I've done? Like, not to offend or anything like that, but I go, I'm open to hear it and take it as like a constructive criticism or things like that. But the feeling of being disliked, it's an interesting one because obviously being a business owner, there's a lot of the times where I'm in a position where I need to make decisions that are hard because they have financial outcomes, they have, emotional outcomes. There's outcomes that tie into decisions that you make as a business owner. But when you're in them and you're challenged with, if you make this call, chances are you're not going to be liked for it. It's a hard decision to make because I get challenged with, would I rather sometimes cop the financial sting at the end and remain liked compared to, thank God I saved $1,000 on that, but I did it at the cost of being disliked. That's actually pretty hard. It is a challenge for me. It truly is.
Has there been times where you've taken the hit with the money and they still didn't like you in the end anyway?
I think every single time.
Yeah. So,
what's your point, mate? I know what you're saying.
I agree with you 100%. Is that if your values and your moral, like if you're standing up for what you believe in, do you know what I mean? Then it's so much easier for you to be disliked for that. So if you're speaking your truth, it's so much easier. But I totally get it. You want to be liked, but for the people that, as long as you've done the right thing, then whether they like you or not, it shouldn't really matter.
That's the danger in itself, though. When you want to be liked, you become a yes man.
Oh, 100%. Because we were both.
Yeah.
We were both like that. We were like, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, no worries.
And
like,
you get so focused on pleasing people that you become a people pleaser or you become a yes man.
Yep.
And the dangers in that is exactly going back to the question you asked before. You end up actually, I say yes to everybody. I always do. Make anything behind? Yep. And then I've got 5 commitments at the one time that I've said yes to. I end up then fumbling between all 5 and letting every single one of them down. And then you go back right to the start of, well, I initially said yes because you want to help. So you say yes because you want to be liked and you end up being disliked by every single one of them. So you actually haven't gotten to the very purpose you actually set out to do. It's frustrating. But it's a battle. Men
sliding scale though, isn't it? Because depending on the stakes of what it is that's actually on there. So if it's a small thing and you're not going to want to be disliked, but if it's a major thing, if it's something that you really hold dear, let's say for you it's your faith and someone's doing the wrong thing, questioning that, you're not going to be so afraid to be disliked because the pain of the internal pulling you, the pain of you being disliked here is less than the pain of you actually selling out to something that you really believe in.
It's a good thought. So do you think you can categorize then the things on what you're willing to be disliked? See, because spot on for faith, right? The fact that I'm openly a Christian doesn't faze me if you dislike me for that. I'm not fazed by it. I wish you had the same belief as me, which is why because I'm a Christian because I believe it's the truth. I share that message because I believe it's the truth. Now, if you want to dislike me for it, I'm happy to move on. I wish you didn't. I wish you heard the message and responded to it because I'm coming from a place of love towards a person to go, I wish you knew God like I did. But if you choose to dislike me for it, I'm okay with that. I'm like, okay, because it's an unwavering thing for me.
What does that say about the man, though? Do you know what I mean? Because if they're going to dislike you just because you're a Christian, you know, so on the other way. So it's like Greg, who we had, like, you know, we accepted him, because of the way he was, you know. But the truth is, some people would hate him because of that. You know what I mean? So I think that as a man too, if you're making that decision to dislike someone because of their job, because of what they believe, because of that sort of stuff, you know, it's as long as it's not affecting you in a negative light, then that also is something that they need to think about and going, well, why do I hate these people so much for believing something different to me? Why can't I be open to other opportunities or other things?
I think it's preset conceptions by people, you know, and you articulated it very, very well. Getting back to the conversation you were having a moment ago, it's like my grandchild. Our kids are different to how we brought them up. You know, they're bringing their children up a little bit differently. And, mate, Theo, I love looking after him. And, mate, I tell him no pretty regularly. I mean, it's what I did to my kids. I remember my kids coming home from school at one stage going, Dad, and this is, it would have been the 90s. And they said, Dad, if you smack us, we can report you at the school and you'll go to jail. I said, well, tell you what, get ready to come visit me in jail. And I said, it's going to be a bit tough for you because you're going to have nowhere to live when I'm in jail. Yeah, I'm going to have a place to live, but I can't look after you anymore. You're not going to get fed. You're obviously not going to the private school that they give you that information from anymore because you won't be able to afford to do that. You're going to have to deliver papers or do something because you'll need to make money. Because I'm in jail. You know, they're feeding me. I get 3 meals a day. I'm going to look after pretty well. But moving on to my grandson, I just see society as very, very different today. I think kids are yearning for that family interaction, and somehow we've got to get them away from this stuff. I mean, this is poison. You know, there are some really, really good things tied to technology, but I think there's more poison tied to it than anything else because people are having, look, I'm just going to say it, they're having shit pumped into their head that half it's not real, and they're believing this stuff that, you know, that there's a lot of terrible things out on the internet that just more than likely is probably not real. And I just think people are being brainwashed, and it's been done on a global level, and I think we have lost touch as human beings with each other. I mean, best thing I love more than anything else is sitting out with my family outside and having a fire and, you know, a bit of a chat about anything, whatever it may be. And we're pushing back on this stuff. We're starting to push back on it more because I even found myself, you know, the old screen time, mate, you're on it a lot. We're all looking up stuff and, you know, you find that where's my phone? I've lost the bloody thing. So lots and lots of reasons why, but getting back to the like and the dislike, I think people want the truth. I think they yearn for the truth. I think kids yearn for the truth. And discipline, that's a part of life. You know, like it's not a good idea to sit under a timber home and light a fire if you're a little kid because you might burn the house down. Kids don't know that. They think fires are lovely. You know, there's lots of different aspects of looking at life, and I just think the older you get, hopefully you get wiser. I don't know if I'm getting stupid as I'm getting older. I look forward to having Alzheimer's one day because every day will be a new one, but just is what it is. Eh? You got to. We live in Australia.
Silver
we take
linings,
the piss
mate.
out of ourselves, and if we don't do that, what are we? I don't know I'm sounding like a heathen the way I've said that. No disrespect to anybody who's got Alzheimer's. Terrible.
I'll forget it, mate. It's okay.
It's that time of the afternoon. And I'm drinking tea.
Don't forget you said it. So bad.
That's through him.
Yeah, totally is for me. I don't know what, lads. Anything else you want to add?
I think that if you don't have the courage to be disliked, then you're not really standing up for what you believe in the first place. So, you know, like, yeah, say what you're thinking. Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone's going to challenge you and you might be wrong about something. Like, I've been wrong about so many things. Like, that's how you learn, isn't it? Like trial and error. And you try something on, does it work, or whether it doesn't work? Like, that is actually the quickest way to improve, is actually to fail something and try something new. That's science. You know, they have a theory, they test it, and if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, they try something else. So, I think, you need the courage to be disliked. So, but it is easy to get into that pleasing personality and just conform to what society wants you to be. So,
Mikey, anything you want to add, bud?
Mate, I'm just looking at it going, if you all you're going to do is do stuff to make people like you, you're going to end up just like the current state of the politics. So.
That's true.
I think it's a bit like marriage. Your marriage isn't going to last if you just go out of your way all the time to try to please your wife. And if you're doing things that you're not doing for genuine reasons, she's eventually going to work it out. And I see a lot out in the world today. I mean, you can't buy love. You can't buy your way out of everything, just because you're getting money. Money's lovely. It's being devalued at the moment. Like I said before about the price of gold, gold's going through the roof, and it's the only way you can kind of retain value of dollars today. But it's about what's in your heart and your body. I mean, Jesus said it so well. I can give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him to fish. He can feed himself for the rest of his life. And I think we all need to start to... I'd advise people, get out there, start reading the Bible, have a look at things, because a bloke that wrote some really, really fantastic words thousands of years ago, and they're still true today, and I think you can look at all that stuff, and you don't have to be religious to do it. There are smart people that have been throughout history, and we forget things really quickly, and we get so tied up with technology. I think put your family first, put the truth up there. In my case, I believe in God. They're my big three, God, family, and the truth. Everything else falls after that. So it's up to you to do what you want to do with your life, but I think we need to come together as a nation, come together as a people, start to have some visions about where we want to see our country. If you just want to stumble and bumble along, that's okay too, but don't complain about it. Don't bitch about anything. If you do want to make a difference, it's going to be hard. People probably won't like what you're going to say, but stand up and say it. Believe in something. If you don't believe in God, believe in something. We all believe in something.
It's true. We all do believe in something. Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you joining me today. This podcast has been very insightful. Mate, Steve, thank you for joining us, buddy. Truly. It's really, really good.
Mate, happy to anytime. I
loved it.
You give me a format if you want to talk about something else in the future, mate. I love life. I'm running in politics, as you know, at the moment, but I'm not running in politics to win. I'm just running in politics to change things a bit. And fortunately, I've got a bit of a profile, and people know me a bit. And I want to throw some good ideas out there, and hopefully a few of them will get picked up. I mean, I know that they desperately want to have the Olympics, but I mean, it's a good conversation piece. I mean, what are the benefits going to be for us as a nation compared to what we need to do right now? If you're going to borrow money and you're going to use borrowed money, you can borrow it for 2032 and have fun and games for a whole 14 days, or we can start to help people fix their lives now. I mean, youth are out of control. People are homeless. People are living under bridges, in cars, in tents. I mean, I don't think we've got our priorities right, and I really hope and pray that we move forward. And somebody might listen to this message out there. You can change the world all by yourself if you want to. You just got to have the will to do it. And it doesn't matter if you're liked or you're not liked. Just do it.
Hey, do you reckon we could half the cost of the Olympics if we just went all in and let the men and women run together? Half the event?
Goes well in boxing, I hear.
Just go...
Yeah. You can't say things like that. You'll be disliked.
Oh, no, that's right.
Yeah. Pull yourself in. Well, gentlemen, thanks once again for joining us. You guys out there, the Average Joes, mate, we love you guys being a part of us here at the podcast, but also, like we say every single week, make sure you get there, check out our socials and where all of our events are, all of our meetups. Get along to your Average Joes this week. To all the guys that have jumped on the website lately and bought a shirt, you guys are legends. It's literally pays for what we do here, so we are so appreciative of that. Our sponsors, One Life Property Group, thanks to those guys once again. So, fellas, thank you for joining us. Good topic. Let's close it out. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, boys.
Take care, lads.
That's
Excellent.
good.
See you, fellas.
Pleasure.